VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. Usually on Wednesdays we have Josh Fry on, but he was under the weather today. You're stuck with me for the next few minutes talking about Vikings-Lions. Said it on the show, a couple other spots, other podcasts this week, that to me, and I think to you, this is one of the most anticipated Vikings regular season games of the decade. Now, I know, of course, like week 1, 2022, brand new head coach at home against the Packers. Pretty damn exciting going into it. 2016, the first home game, beating the Packers, another ginormous game. But in the middle of the season, with oodles of implications, the Vikings are 5-0, the Lions are 4-1. You'd be hard-pressed to find a regular season game that quite has this juice. And so it's pretty damn fantastic. Thankfully, this game is at home. The Vikings are actually favored by 2.5. I don't know if this line will shrink up, because we're waiting on injury statuses of Aaron Jones, who I think will play. TJ Hawkinson, I do not think will play. And then Dalton Reisner, of course, says he's healthy, and I don't know if that means he'll start. Probably not. They'll probably bank on continuity in the offensive line. But the point spread is indeed 2.5 points in favor of the Vikings. So let's go through some of this. I'll be pretty straightforward at the top of the episode. I think the Vikings will win this game. Now, you'll recall 2 weeks ago on a show just like this, I didn't feel great about Vikings-Jets in London. I thought the Vikings were due to drop a game in London for once. And I thought playing Aaron Rodgers for the final time, he would find a way to get the best of the Vikings. In fact, the way that I kind of saw that in my head was similar to how it almost played out. The Vikings got up 17-0, and it felt like, oh, here they come. And it's just that they couldn't quite get it done. The Jets, that is, Stephon Gilmore, ended the thing with a game-sealing interception, and I was wrong. The Vikings actually won by 6. So, I'm going to be done picking against the Vikings until we see otherwise. I don't think we're going to have a 2016-like collapse, or 2003 when they started 6-0. I think this club is a lot more balanced. I know they're about more balanced than either one of those teams. The 2016 offense couldn't run the football. This team can. And then 2003 was one of those Mike Tice teams that never had much of a defense, but it had all of the fancy names on offense and really propped things up for about half the season. So I think the Vikings will find a way to win this one by a touchdown. 30-23 is my score, and here are the primary reasons why I'm choosing the purple team. So the first one is home field advantage. If this game was at Ford Field, at this very spot on the calendar, I would pick the Lions and say, hey, Vikings will maybe get them at US Bank in December or January, whenever that theoretical game would be. But this one is at US Bank Stadium, and with these teams pretty damn evenly matched in terms of momentum, the Lions might have a better roster, probably have a better offensive line. I still like the Vikings to prevail at home. So last year, one of the dirtiest little secrets of Vikings football was they finished 2-6 at home, which was loathsome, especially when you go to every game. And the place used to be this fortress of home field domination and advantage. They were quietly 2-6 at home last year. So what I think we're seeing right now is that stat coming back to normal, where the Vikings franchise long are pretty darn good at their building, and so they're undefeated in general and at home this year. I think we're going to see that continue. I expect that building to be just jacked and electric. During the Texans game, even when the Vikings are up by like 20 points, it was still wall-to-wall electricity from fans. It just never missed a beat during that Texans game, so I expect a lot of the same. Talking with Sal Spice, who joins the show on Fridays, she's kind of said that she expects the juice to be kind of like the Minneapolis Miracle game. It should feel like a playoff game because these teams are never really like this. It's usually the Lions who aren't very good and the Vikings who are pretty good but never good enough. Well, right now they feel like they're both there. Like either one could reasonably win the NFC based on how well they've played through 6 weeks. So I like the Vikings because of home field advantage. And a lot of times for better or worse, I base my decision-making on some items from the past. So here's the deal. The Vikings have lost 3 games in a row to the Lions, and that feels really weird. They did it in a very naughty way in 2016. In 2016 and I think into 2017, they somehow lost 3 in a row to the Lions, but that's a rarity. in my lifetime. So I did my homework to figure out when was the last time they lost 4 in a row to the Lions. That hasn't happened since the John F. Kennedy administration, way back in the early 1960s. So because the Lions have gotten the best of them in the last 3 occasions, I think we are historically due for a reverse now. Now, you might consider that a lame reason. It probably is, but that's not the way my decision making things. I honestly believe that can these guys really beat the O'Connell Vikings thrice in a row? No, I don't think so. I think we're about even to win a game over the Lions, especially in a historical series that is this damn lopsided. In all of sports, Vikings over Lions is one of the most dominant matchups in head-to-head sports history. So I just don't envision the Lions getting the best of the Vikings 4 times in a row. So give me the purple team. The next thing I enjoy and why I'm picking the Vikings in this one is the bye week. They just came off a bye week. Kevin O'Connell has shown he's pretty darn good at coming off of those. There were some games during the Zimmer days that didn't have, or I should say some years under Zimmer where the team didn't look that great coming out of a bye. We just talked about 2016 a few moments ago. But let's face it, these are 2 really, really good NFC teams, NFC North teams, doing battle on Sunday, and one is more rested, one, I don't know, the injury reports, we could probably, compare notes and figure out which one has it worse. But I think on the whole, the Vikings having longer time to prepare for this matchup is not a hindrance, and I think it is a perk. Now, if they had equal preparation time, or the Lions are the one coming off the bye, maybe I wouldn't even acknowledge this one. But I trust Kevin O'Connell foremost, and I think that since they're coming off a bye, they've had longer than most to refocus coming home from across the pond, and I think that is a little bit of advantage. And we already know the Vikings know the Lions really well, and so they just had extra time to get ready for a team that's already really good. A couple more before we sign off for Wednesday. No Aiden Hutchinson. He will not play. He broke his, was it tibia? I can't remember which one it was, but he is not coming back this season. And then nobody has really mentioned this all that much, maybe because folks don't think he's any good, but Marcus Davenport is out too for the season. So the 2 pass rushing solutions that the Lions have on their roster on an otherwise darn good defense, they're not going to play. And to me, that's going to matter. So I pulled up the season-long numbers for the Lions defense with Aiden Hutchinson, because he's been there the whole time this season. The Lions defense ranks 9th right now per EPA per play. Usually when the Lions have gotten good in the last year and a half, the offense is up there in the top 7, but then the defense is down in the 20s. That's not the case this year. So we can't rest on our laurels and be like, yeah, the Lions defense, that thing sucks. It doesn't. But without a pass rush of Aiden Hutchinson and then to an extent Marcus Davenport, they're going to have to get creative with Josh Paschal and some of the dudes that they have that aren't big names. They're going to have to figure out a way to get to Sam Darnold, who has pretty darn good pocket presence. So if Aiden Hutchinson were playing or Marcus Davenport was right there with him, I don't know, I'd probably pick the Vikings by a field goal or something like that. But to me, until proven otherwise, Aiden Hutchinson is the straw that stirs the drink up front for the Lions, kind of like Danielle Hunter in, pretty much since Everson Griffin left the team. When Danielle Hunter, it was always just kind of him after Everson Griffin left, and then you'd have a guy like Zadarius Smith, who was good some games, sometimes he was kind of injured. I think they might be top-heavy at edge rusher, and because there is no Aiden Hutchinson, I think that is an advantage to the Vikings. It sounds morbid, but I do want to put that as a reason why the Vikings will probably prevail. And then Sam Darnold. In the first 3 weeks, that guy, absolutely fantastic. His EPA CPOE ranking was, I think it was top 7, and then it has fallen back from weeks 4 and 5. So the last 2 games he played down to like number 19, kind of where we thought he might be. So I actually do. I've been on an odyssey with Sam Darnold. You'll recall doing this show last March. I really wasn't crazy enthused by the signing because I didn't want bullshit with a bridge quarterback. But then they drafted J.J. McCarthy, and then, of course, he got hurt. And so we had no other choice than to jump into this Darnold sweepstakes and get excited about it. Well, watching him play and then seeing, of course, the team undefeated, and knowing that Sam Darnold doesn't lack the arm talent, I believe in this guy. And just because you play poorly to an extent against the Jets, and then the last hour and a half of the Packer game wasn't fantastic, I don't think that is closer to the real Darnold. I really don't. I think with Kevin O'Connell's tutelage, Sam Darnold is due for a bounce-back game. And the Lions defense, like I just said, is pretty decent, but it's not otherworldly like the Jets felt a couple weeks ago in London. So I think I know the Vikings quarterback is due for a bounce back, and I think we will see that against the Lions. And it's kind of why I had 53 points going on to the board with a prediction of 30-23. So to recap, home field advantage, I believe in it, and I believe the Vikings are due for a home win over the Lions. If the Lions win, they will have won 4 in a row over the Vikings, which would be the first time they had done that in about 62 years. The Vikings are coming off a bye week, which means in theory they should be more prepared than the other team. The Lions, sucks for them, are going to be without Aiden Hutchinson and already lost Marcus Davenport. That's a lot of pass rushing beef just not to have against the Vikings, your most formidable test on the calendar so far. And then if you believe in Sam Darnold like this guy does in this system, he's due for a bounce back. I don't think on Sunday night we're going to be chatting with Brevin Bain on this show about Darnold. Yep, he was shitty again. Maybe he's just a pumpkin now. 3 good games, 3 bad games. I don't think we're going to have that conversation. So, give me the Vikings 30-23 to move to 6-0. And then I am heading to Los Angeles for Vikings-Rams thereafter, about a week from today, actually. So that's all I got for this edition. Skol, baby.